So in this lesson, I wanted to talk about arrays and how we use arrays in JavaScript. Now, arrays are different than our initial variables that we were setting. And the way that they are different is that they can hold multiple values. So instead of just holding one value, they can contain any number of values. And the way that we can do this is we can set up an array. So it looks similar to the way that we're setting up this DOM object and the other variables that we had worked with. So I'm just going to call it my array. And here is where I can actually place items in the array. So I can have something like 1, 2. I can even have some integers here, 7, 9. And you notice that the format is the same as when we're setting the variables. So I quote around the strings and I leave the integers as unquoted values. And 3. And so on. So we can set any number of values there. And this is all going to be contained within the my array. And when I console log out my array, so sorry, I love to copy and paste that to save me the trouble of rewriting console log. So just to show you what's going to get output here within the array. So we see that instead of just having that one value, we see we've got access to all of those values within the array. So there's a number of different ways that we can set arrays. We can define an array within this type of format, or we can assign values to it if we do something like this and do my array B, and then we can just do new array, and here we can enter in our values, so we don't necessarily need to enter it in this format. I can enter it in this format as well. And these are just different ways to set up your array. So I forgot to console log that out. So that would be my array B. And just show you how it gets presented again within the console. So same thing, just different ways of initiating and setting up your array. So now if we want to actually access these items in the array and we wanted to print them out into the output, I'll show you how we can do that. So I'm going to just move this down because now we've set up our arrays, and if I wanted to have access to 1 or 2 or any one of these numbers, I can do it like this, where I do my array. So I do the array name, and then all I have to do is select the item. So starting with 0, arrays start at 0, so this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have 5 items. We can assign any one of these values. So starting with 0 gives us 5 different values or keys that we can use in order to determine what part of this array that we want to show. So I can do something like this, do array 0, or maybe we'll do it a little bit more interesting there with 1. So what do you think is going to be the output here? And take a look at the array. So this is the one that I'm accessing, and if you said our output is going to be 2, you're correct, because this is going to be the second item, so with the key value of, or the index value of 1. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's how we access arrays. And of course we can even update arrays. So if I wanted to update that value of the array, this is going to work the same way that the other variables do. So we can take array number 1 and newly updated value, and we can add that newly updated value within that array. So we see that now the output is newly updated value. And also looking at over here, when we console logged out those arrays, we see that we haven't had that change take place. And if I take this and place this over here, we can see that now afterwards, and again, order is important, that afterwards, once we've updated the array, the newly updated array value is now present when we do console log and output the contents of the array. Now within arrays, there's also some built-in methods that are really cool, and they're going to really allow you to do some really neat stuff with the arrays. So one of them is if I want to know how many items are here within the array, I guess I'm going to console log that out, and I'm also going to console log out. So if I want to know how many items are within there, and this is going to be important when we're actually calculating out how many items there are, and maybe we're doing some loops, which is coming up in the next lesson, where we're going to look at loops and conditions. So this is where length becomes important, and this will give us the total value of items that are available within that array. And another one that's popular is giving you the ability to actually sort the array items. So we'll see that after we do the sort, it'll change the way that the array items are presented. So what's happened over here is that initially, so we've got the length of the array. We see that there's 5 items in the array. And then here we've got that initial array. So now we've done a sort of the array, and we see that first it does a numeric, and then it does an alphabetical sort. So 1, 3, and 2. So it's sorted it alphabetically. And now when we access these particular items in the array, the order is going to be different now. So that's one thing that's important to note. So if I'm outputting that array value, and I've sorted it, so I got to move things around, so it is quite a lot of stuff is getting output there. But we see that now that I've moved things around, our output is still accessing item number 1, which is the second item in the array, and we're getting that output within our HTML. So again, order is important, and that's how you work with arrays. And arrays can become really powerful because they can hold a lot of information, and then having that ability to sort things, to calculate, to loop through the items really does add that added power when you use arrays. And when you're just determining how you're going to set up your logic, this is where arrays come into place, and they're going to have much more capability than if you had a series of variables. So if I had A equals 1, B equals 2, C equals 7, D equals 9, E equals 3, I don't have all of this capability where I can sort through the length. I don't have the capability where I can sort them alphabetically or in order, and so on. So that's why we do use arrays, because of this added capability when we're creating our dynamic coding and applying our logic. So coming up, we're going to talk more about these really cool things, functionality that's built into JavaScript that really does accelerate your process of updating the code dynamically. So in working in a combination arrays, conditions, loops, and functions and variables, you can get most of what you want done within JavaScript and most of what you want to happen within your HTML page.